Hello and welcome to another edition of The Simsbury Woman. I'm Barbara O'Connor. In his performance at Comic Relief in 1986, George Carlin said that all you need in life is a little place for your stuff. If we didn't have stuff, we wouldn't need houses. They're really just piles of stuff with a cover over it and a place that we need to keep our stuff when we go out to get more stuff. I know personally, sometimes I feel that my stuff owns me more than I own it. I swear the plastic containers in my pantry multiply when I'm not looking. And what happens when you have grown children? I know our grown sons have gone off on their own, but they left us with their stuff, so they always have a place to come home to. I've got stuff that hasn't seen the light of day in decades. I've got to do something about it. My two guests today hopefully can help us get control of those things that surround us. Heather Feinsinger owns Restyle Your Closets, LLC, and Susan Levine is the principal in the counseling firm Women Reshaping Lives. Ladies, thanks for joining me today. We've got to get a handle on this. I personally have to get a handle on it. I'd like to start by having you explain your backgrounds a little bit more and how you help people get control of their environment. Heather, why don't we start with you? How did you get into helping people with their organization?
Well, I have a background in property management and in real estate sales, and I was kind of burning out from that and wanting a career change. And I found that when I was working with people selling their homes, the part of it I really enjoyed was helping them get their homes ready, figure out what they need to bring to their next step. And also, I would help family members. I loved to help someone with a project. They needed to clean out their closet, redo their kitchen. I would love to go over and help them sort through things, decide what to do. And so I followed that, and I love doing what I do.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned how you changed careers. And if ever you were doing one thing and then you got tired of that and you wanted to kind of reshape yourself.
Yes.
Which brings me to Susan with her firm, who Susan and I have talked before. The whole preface of RE in a word has been very appropriate to so many of us in our lives. You in particular.
Yes, I came to Women Reshaping Lives as part of my own reshaping when I retired from being the cantor of the Farmington Valley Jewish Congregation, Emek Shalom, here in Simsbury. What I was looking at was how we deal with transition, and not only what do we do with our stuff, our physical stuff, but what do we do with our emotional stuff? Because certainly when we're in transitions of divorce or career transition, aging, retirement, bereavement, that emotional stuff is swirling in us and needs to be sorted out. I've been, so that's what I do with women in Women Reshaping Lives. And I have been a Connecticut licensed professional counselor for close to 18 years.
Wow. Yeah. Now, Heather, when somebody comes to you,
Yes.
How do you work with them first? What are the mechanics of working with somebody to help them get organized?
Well, I first meet with them for about an hour for a consultation, which is no obligation, and I do that for people free of charge. It helps me understand how they live, what problems are bothering them in their home, and it helps me to come up with a plan with them to tackle what they need to do. So I start with that, and then I come up with a list of homework for them, perhaps setting a date, getting a few things ready, occasionally buying some bins or other baskets to organize. But I'm not a big believer that you have to spend a lot of money buying fancy things to organize. You can use things you already have in your home. And so I formulate that plan, and then I tend to work with people in 2 or 3 hour stretches, and people think, oh, can we do the whole day? But it's really quite intense, and we concentrate on one area at a time. And I find that most people start to burn out on decision making on what will we do with this. It becomes overwhelming after a few hours. So probably 3 to 4 hours is the max I'll work with someone, but many people after 2 are done. And then we revisit, then I'll revisit them if
Now,
more time
like
is
the
needed.
name of your company obviously is Restyle Your Closet. So I think we can use closet almost as a metaphor for
Right.
just your whole life there. But like, would you literally go in with somebody and take everything out of their closet and sort through piece by piece?
Yes, if that's what they need. I find that a lot of people don't know where to begin on a project like this. It's something that bothers them. They don't know where to start, and I'm the kind of person that can help them figure it out. I try to be a non-attached voice because they're attached to things, and I'm not attached to their things.
Can you describe any of sort of common things that happen at each client's house? Because I know, we all think we're totally unique with that. I can remember when I was first having children, talking to my mother and seeing her kind of roll her eyes at what I was saying, like, you're not the first person to ever have a kid. And now when I look at younger mothers who make pronouncements of things, I can feel myself doing the same thing, like, you're not, are there things where people think, I've got absolutely the worst situation here, or there's no way I can deal with this? Are there things that everybody seems to have problems with?
There are things. People do have problems with attachments to things. I see that everywhere. And a lot of those attachments are related to gifts from family members or friends. Those are very hard for people to figure out what to do with if they're things that don't really suit their life right now, that people struggle with. People struggle with things that their children made. Things that were grandma's, things that were passed down in the family seem to be the kind of things people struggle with. Also, one thing I see a lot is people lose things and they keep buying things because they can't find the things that they already have in their stuff. So I do see a lot of that people end up having so many of the same item because they just don't know where it is. I've uncovered a lot of gift cards and little Starbucks manicure, pedicure gift cards people have gotten that they've just stuffed places and couldn't find. That's one thing that always turns up. So
the commonality that Heather just mentioned about the people feeling guilty about gifts and things like that. I mean, guilt in our culture is such a, we talk about, well, you were a cantor, so Jewish guilt. I know Catholic guilt. I mean, it's just like, management by guilt sometimes with getting things done in your households stuff. How do you deal with that guilt of, I love the person who gave me this. I've really never liked this thing, but I don't have the heart to get rid of it.
Well, here it's making a separation of the love that you have for the person who gave it to you and the physical item. And so if you're holding in your head that there's a should, I should keep this because Aunt Mary gave this to me. And I remember Aunt Mary so very fondly. But if it's an item that you don't connect to, or you don't even connect Aunt Mary to, wouldn't it be better to think of the memories of Aunt Mary that do connect with you? So it's making that separation and allowing it, rather than having the guilt take over, the should take over. That's the clutter of the emotion that swirls around and clouds the decision making.
It's almost like we've got, clutter in every facet of our lives, whether it's physical clutter, digital clutter, the clutter of messages that come at us, the clutter of emotions. It really is overwhelming at times.
Absolutely. It is.
Like, would you feel that sometimes that many of the clients that you have are just overwhelmed by the task of what they have to do when they start looking at?
I do. And I think that sometimes they look at their entire home where they have many areas, the child's room, an attic, a basement, home office, all the different closets in your home, your linen closet, your pantry, and it's overwhelming to think of. So then they leave and they go out and they buy more stuff, actually, oftentimes, instead of staying home and trying to get control of the stuff because it's overwhelming.
Now, when you mentioned, things, your children's room and all that, do you find that whether you are helping somebody deal with, the clutter of toys in the family room and all of that, or just their own personal things, you find that they're really basically the same issues of trying to find order? Or?
I do. Well, it depends on the family situation, really. And I find that a lot of parents think that these toys and things are more important to their children than the children find them to be. So some of the kids will say, "No, Mom, that's okay. I don't use those stuffed animals anymore. We can give them, to kids who are less fortunate." Or and it's actually the parents feel it for the children, it seems, more. And then they feel it for their own things as well, the attachment and the difficulty in getting rid of things. But I always think that if you can pass things on to people who actually can use them, there are so many people in need locally, globally, that I think it helps people feel better about saying goodbye to things, that they're not just throwing them in the trash, that they're giving them to someone who doesn't have these things and could use them.
Yeah, that I think for some reason, maybe it's because our parents grew up in the Depression and they taught us, to never waste things.
Right.
I always feel guilty of when I'm throwing things away.
Right.
And I try to find some way to give it a second life or whatever.
Absolutely.
And that comes to I do a lot of donating. Well, the other day when I was preparing a box for the donation pickup, I was putting in there some ceramic vases that my sons had made in their fine arts requirements in high school. And one of the sons saw them and said, "Nobody wants our stuff like that. Throw that away, Mom." Why you still have it is beyond us, but and I think that there's a lot of stuff that we do donate that I wonder, are we causing more problems for the receiving organization than we should? How do you decide what's worth donating and what's worth what do you just have to trash?
When I'm working with people, I try to put things in different bins and piles, and the upper echelon of things are things that you can actually make some money on, your buyer's remorse items, gifts that you don't want anymore. There are plenty of consignment shops in this area, so those are the things that are in really perfect to new condition that can be sold. Then there's the next lower down level where you might donate them to a thrift shop, where you have to think that people will actually shop there and pay money for them. So you have to think, okay, this shirt might be out of style or not my color, it's not perfect, but I think somebody would pay $5 for it.
Yeah.
Somebody might. So that's the next pile. Then there are things that are really less than that. So things that are out of style but in good condition, I think can still go to certain charities, larger ones, the ones that tend to sell their lots to other countries.
Yeah.
But then there are things that really are just garbage, and that's things that are damaged, broken zippers, stains. You can make rags out of some things to really just make it go that much further in life as, for usefulness. But there are certain things that you just have to accept their time is over. They were good, you enjoyed them, and it's time to really say goodbye.
Do you think, and that kind of leads us to
the
the idea of letting go.
Yes.
Yeah.
In counseling, we talk a lot about what we hold on to emotionally and why, and what is it going to be like to let go of it? Do I have to grieve it? Do I have to just be sad that I'm letting something go? You mentioned, your son's fine arts projects. And that
we use the term loosely there when we say fine art. Yeah.
The emotional piece there is remembering your sons when they were younger.
Yeah. That's.
You're remembering them when they were in high school, and the kind of family life you had back then. And so those pieces, those ceramic pieces, are a symbol of that. So they're not just stuff, but they're stuff that has a certain meaning. And so it's the letting go of the stuff, and also saying, oh, okay, I can remember very fondly, the boys being in high school. I don't need the stuff
Yeah, that's true.
to be with me, to remember that.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at these things. I think one thing that along that line where it becomes even a sharper thing is if you've lost that person, where I mean, you're grieving in so many different ways when you're trying to deal with that kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
It's,
So well, first of all, it's coming to a readiness of being able to let go when you are grieving the loss of a loved one that has died. And very often we don't allow enough time for that grieving process because it makes everyone around us so uncomfortable. That, we just wish that, Sandra was getting back into life. It's been 6 months since she lost her husband. 6 months in the scheme of, being married for 25, 30, 40 years is a very small amount of time. And we all grieve in our own timetable. So not rushing. In fact, probably even certain things when we're grieving, certain things may come first. Just even finding a new order to the day that is so hard to do because of the emptiness.
It's almost like I think when you are grieving or something, you use stuff as a comfort factor, almost to build a wall around yourself,
yes, absolutely.
and a circle of things. I know, I'm sure you've all seen those shows on television, those reality shows that deal with people with extreme cases of hoarding, and you wonder, often there's a trigger like that of a loss or something that they then build up this really real walls, not just figuratively. Now, I would think if somebody has called you in to help with reorganizing things, that they've made a conscious decision that they want to get rid of things, but then do you find that it's when push comes to shove, it's hard to?
I have
some
everyone is different, and some clients are very easy. They catch on, they start doing the projects themselves with their family, they get the whole family involved, and then there are other people that I find that I see again and again and again because it's hard for them to part with things, and they really need to go over the items with someone else and then say, well, maybe we need to look at this again in 6 months. I think those people might benefit from talking with someone like you, actually.
Well, there's the emotional component
right
there, that it's the letting go of what you're associating with the item.
Yes, and a few of those people that I have worked with have kind of like compulsive shopping disorder too, which makes them, once we get rid of stuff, then all of a sudden they replace it with some more stuff. So
now you were, you talk about, and most organization things kind of say to sort with keep, donate, donate or sell, and then trash. Now you have you also added another category of when you're dealing with emotional clutter, which is come back to it later. Right?
Well, it was can't make up my mind.
Can't make up my mind. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
okay.
And that's allowing, first of all, allowing that you can't make up your mind, that you feel evenly divided, and you need some space to honor that. That it's okay. So often we think that it has to be perfect, it has to be done in a certain way, but we're all human, and certain things have a lot of pull for us. In retirement, you're looking at all the things that you've accumulated in your working years, in your career years. What do you do with it all?
Yeah.
And how do you sort through it? And there may be some things that you want to hold on to because it's part of your identity. And it's not necessarily that you're going to use it, but until you've grieved that and moved on to who you are going to be, it's very hard to let go.
I think I'm realizing too, there's also a family dynamic involved a lot of times with what's going on. I mean, we were transferred around a lot, and before each move, my sons would say that I got into a certain mindset where if anybody sat still too long, they were gone. And in fact, I sold some things recently, and then once you start getting money for things, you want to sell it. Everything,
What else?
everything you can get your hands on. So I looked at a set of glasses that we had gotten, some as wedding gifts, and some then we added, so we had enough to go with our good china. And it's like, okay, we've got a dozen of these glasses. They're not official red wine or white wine glasses. They're just kind of small glasses. We rarely use them. So I say to my husband, all right, I'm going to sell those. And he goes, but I really like those. Oh. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And it's the kind of thing where I thought it was just something there. He goes, I really like all of our wedding china and all of the glasses that we got for our wedding. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll find something else to sell. But you don't, you've got to, I think, be respectful of all of that too, where, I mean, granted, when my sons were little, the way they cleaned their rooms was to move it to the next youngest child, so that the youngest child literally said to me once, well, I didn't clean my room, but I did clear some paths. So you could and that was their way of holding on, but yet fulfilling what they felt was the letter of the law of cleaning their own rooms, where the family really has to figure out, I think, with some things, with what's important to,
Absolutely.
It's one thing to do your own closet or your own dresser, but when you start getting into some of the larger things, I think you're dealing with interpersonal things too there. That
Sure. And just even think of it, if there's a family situation where there's a remarriage.
Oh,
Right.
And so you're blending families, and you have two sets of memories
Yes.
that are very, very important to each person. And so that's a place for conversation, to say, okay, if this is really so meaningful for you, we do need to have it in our home.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to see how you can fit it together.
I try to suggest to people that they don't take these items that they have attachment to and just stick them in a box in a closet. Mm-hmm. Why not take Aunt Mary's bowl and put it on your dining room table with some fruit in it? Use it. Mm-hmm. By all means. But I think a lot of people, their mindset is that you're supposed to store these things, and I think if you really do want them in your home, enjoy them and use them. Mm-hmm. I've started using some of my grandmother's little bowls myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's great. I'm glad I did. They're from her china set, but I use them every day, put my little tea bag on in the morning, and it's nice because I think of her.
Yes, you think of her, and it's a part of that.
Rather than having them sitting in a box in my basement collecting dust, So
I always remember a beautiful vintage watch that belonged to my mother, and it was in a safety deposit box for years and years and years. And then I decided that it was too beautiful and too much of a memory, an important memory, to be stored away. Mm-hmm. And so I took it out and brought it to a jeweler, and I said, I'd like you to make this watch work. And it took a couple of tries, but it is a working watch, and every time I put it on, I'm thinking of my mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rather than it being hidden away.
Memory. Yes,
and
absolutely.
For me, I think the closets in our house tend to start holding things that we put away. Maybe some of those things you mentioned that you can't decide about right now. So we put them in a closet. But that periodically you should probably go back through your closets, and then you might realize, I haven't really missed this stuff or thought about it, and I think I'm ready to part with it. Or you go through your closets and say, there's jewelry. Yes, I've had clients do the same thing. Take that pin and have it put on a pendant and wear it that way. And that was your grandmother, so that you can actually enjoy these things.
And in the process of doing that, you're really looking at the feelings, the emotions that are attached to it, and the memories that are
Right.
attached to it. And it's a wonderful, in fact, when you have this, I can't make up my mind, and you kind of put it away and you come back to it, if you find you're at a different point, a different place of
Absolutely.
decision making, it's, oh wow, how have I grown? How have
Exactly.
I changed to be able to, oh, now I'm ready to say, it's okay, I can part with it. Or,
Right.
gee, now I know exactly why I'm so attached to this.
as well.
And so, yeah, I need to hang on to it. It's a
So it's like
wonderful
you
way
can
of
get
knowing.
a clearer way of thinking, both with things that you've held on to for the memories, plus the things that you use day to day, and what you need, and finding the other shoe
Right.
that matches that one, or the other earring, or whatever it is, as you try to get everything in order. I guess I often feel like it's. I personally just feel like I can accomplish so much more if I've got things in order. I need to kind of start from a big cloud of everything going on and break it up into the little pieces and get things in order, and then I can see more clearly what I need to do, and how to just get moving.
Yeah, I think when people are stagnated with their stuff and they don't know what to do with it, it can make them feel anxious, uncomfortable, and I really think that trying to adopt that less is more, and having just more experiences and less stuff really makes people happier that I've worked with, for the most part. There are the exceptions, of course, but I think that they like to adapt to that and stop being so stuff oriented, and it saves you money.
And all of this stuff is very overwhelming.
Yes.
It can be.
Think of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming to not know where can I put something. What do I do with it? I'm not sure what purpose this serves anymore.
Right, or I can't find
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually all that we have time for
Oh,
today.
my.
But I do hope our discussion today can help you get started on controlling your own stuff rather than having it control you. I'd like to thank Heather Feinsinger and Susan Levine for joining me today. I think it was a great conversation, and I really appreciate them taking the time. And thank you for joining us by tuning in. Hope to see you again on another Simsbury Woman.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.